So you say you got some questions. Well, I might have answers. Maybe. Heidi writes, what do you think about all the remakes of classic films that have been made recently? And what kind of film would you make if you could remake any film? Truth be known, I don't watch a lot of modern movies, and I'm not trying to be some weird hipster saying that. I just don't dig a lot of it. Maybe I don't connect with it because I'm older and most movies are made for young folks. But yeah, I've been alive for a long time, and I also see a lot of the faults in movies and a lot of the copying, and I'm like, oh, I know where you got that, or I've seen this plot before. So there's a lot of that. Remakes sort of engender that and magnify that as well. If a remake's done well, though, interesting characters, something done a little bit differently with the plot, but also still interesting, Different isn't always interesting. And I'm not into gimmicks and trends. I can make this look this way, or I can make it look that way. Not really into that. There have been some over the years I've liked, as far as remakes. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the 70s version. The Thing, which is a remake of The Thing from Another World. The Fly was decent. Bram Stoker's Dracula from the 90s was good. And of course Scarface, which is a remake. That was a 1930s version. Those are decent. The remake of Dawn of the Dead I liked too, but there aren't many more after that, and that kind of stinks. As for remaking a film myself, it'd be tough, but I was thinking about maybe doing a sort of Where Are They Now updated version of The Decline of Western Civilization Part 2, The Metal Years, for those who know that documentary. It's so full of weirdos, I'd love to know what's happening to them now. I had a friend of mine who lived in Hollywood who had some updates on a couple of them. Like, one of them killed a guy with a cinder block and is in prison. Another guy was on Cops. I think he tried to kill himself. And I did see the lead singer of London on an episode of Love Connection, and the girl totally dissed him. So that kind of makes me wonder what happened to all the rest of them. So I suppose that's my answer. Blake writes, are there any of the usual annoying millennial crowds that you have to deal with in Burlington, or not? I think the key phrase there is have to deal with, because I usually don't have to deal with them. And I'm an older guy, and I don't hang around younger circles, and that's where a lot of it tends to come from. I don't hang out with people I don't get along with or deal with, and so you can minimize your exposure to that kind of stuff in general, just by common sense. And, not all millennials fit into this stereotype of the social justice warrior or the third wave feminist, or the folks who are pretentiously trying to be gender confused and then working their issues out that way. I've met plenty of millennials who are just as sick of those folks as the rest of us. And also interesting are the sort of pre-teens, coming up teens who, I've met them because they're children and friends of mine, who also have a real disdain for that kind of thing. So they're the coming generation, and they're probably not going to suffer those fools either, and definitely not adopt that kind of thing, because they're sick of it too. The trick is basically not putting yourself in those social situations. That's basically the beginning and the end of it. If you don't like idiots, don't hang out with idiots. So, there it is. Michael Anthony writes, have you ever heard and loved a song that you could never find again? I'm going to take a slightly different direction with this. Back in 1982, there was a movie that came out called Night Shift. You might remember it. It's a comedy. It was Ron Howard's directorial debut. It had Henry Winkler and Michael Keaton. And basically the plot was these two guys who work at a morgue, and they become pimps, basically, or love brokers. And they run a prostitution ring out of the morgue. And hilarity ensues. And it actually is a pretty funny movie. The soundtrack had some occasionally inspired moments, and I guess that's where I'm going with this. There's a scene in which Henry Winkler's character, Chuck, visits Michael Keaton's character, Billy, at his apartment. And it's when he says, I'm all in for the whole pimp thing. And Billy's playing this song in his apartment kind of loudly. And the song's called Take It Off by the band Riggs. And I was 14 at the time. I discovered hard rock at this point, and later heavy metal. And I pretty much grabbed on anything guitar-driven and heavy and loud. So I was kind of obsessed with this song. I couldn't find it anywhere. I couldn't find a single. I couldn't find the album. And for years, I guess I guess I let it go, but every time I watch the movie, I'd be like, there's that song, I love that song. So it was recently when I jumped on YouTube and found it, and found out the name of it and all of that. So I actually ran Soundhound against the movie to make sure I had the right song. Even though I could have checked the credits, I wanted to make sure it was the right one. It's heavily dated. It's early 80s hard rock. I mean, there's nothing really amazing about the song, but you know, it doesn't even matter because I'm tracking down the album on Discogs as we speak. David writes, why is there this weird odor whenever I piss after eating asparagus? Well, Dave, that's a fascinating question. Our bodies digest the vegetable and then create this sulfur compound, or a combination of sulfur compounds in our system that create the odor. It can happen as soon as 15 to 30 minutes after eating asparagus. The funny thing is that not everyone gets smelly urine from this, and medical science doesn't know why that is, why some people do and some people don't. I'm of the latter camp, just in case you need the TMI. Not that this question isn't TMI in general, but so yeah, that's why. It's all biology, and it's selective in the people. So there you go. Zoth writes, one of my earliest childhood memories was looking at the inside layout of the Kiss Alive 2 album while listening to the record. I was like 7 or 8 at the time. I imagined what it would be like to be there at their show. Can you recall a similar experience in your childhood that transported you somewhere while you listened to a favorite album? Actually, not only similar, pretty much exact. When I got the Alive 2 album, it is my favorite of the Kiss Live albums, by the way. I know people like Alive more, but not in that camp as much. The band had a very specific thing in the 1970s. I mean, they were on the top of their game. They had an image and a popularity that couldn't be matched, even then or now. And I would have loved to have been a more direct part of that. When this album came out, I was about the same age. I was probably closer to 9. And interestingly enough, my aunt, who's about 8 years older than I am, got to see the Destroyer tour. I still have the ticket, pretending like I saw it, I guess. I don't even know. But I had wished I had been there. I wish I had been that much older because I probably would have gone to the show. You know, by the time I discovered the band in 1983, Peter was gone, Ace was gone. It was a different band. A band I still like a whole lot, but different. And, you know, so when I opened that Alive 2 gatefold, I look back and, again, wish I was older so I could have seen that show. But I guess I'll have to settle for live albums and bootlegs and the live concerts that are on the Kissology DVD box set and all of that. So, yep, that's what I got. So I bet you've got some questions, and I might have some answers. If you do, leave them in the comments of this post, or send me an email to the address listed on the screen. Also, remember to like this video, and if you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button. And remember to hit the notification bell next to the subscribe button because YouTube makes things impossibly difficult. That's all for now. Take care and ever forward.